STAKK Nation, welcome back to the channel.
Champions.
In today's video, Elon Musk is on a big screen.
Large screen, like literally big screen.
Yes, Elon Musk is on a massive screen and he's talking to the people who want to be world leaders, or I guess
The one world order.
the World Government Summit.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about this one world order, I never thought I would see so much. What do they call this thing? The white headbands.
Oh come on! Don't do that! Don't do that! Let's not go there! Let's not go there! It's in Dubai. It's just it's that's the way they dress there. Let's not do that. Come on.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I'm saying that the location is just not what I expected it was going to be. Because usually when these things happen, you usually see like I don't know, somewhere like in Geneva,
In the Alps,
in the
somewhere
Alps.
in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's in Dubai. So I just think I'm not nothing against.
In the middle of the Middle East.
I just do not think that it was yeah. It's just not something that I expected. So
Hey,
I'm just saying it's interesting to
You
me.
have to rub shoulders with the big money, man.
Whatever. I'm just saying that it's interesting to me. There's really nothing behind it. That's all. I'm just pointing out that this is just something that I did not expect. That's all. But anyway, so Elon Musk. I don't know if he was invited. Obviously, he had to be invited because he's here now. And more interestingly, I'm wondering why did they invite him to come up here and say this to these people? So let's listen in.
I don't think they knew he was going to say that. Elon is just crazy like that, man. This guy is just a different guy in the room. Always going the opposite direction.
I don't know. Did they not think that he would say something like this? I mean, if they do not think he would say something like this, then they're probably stupider than I think.
Nobody can tell Elon what to say. That for sure.
I understand, but like, I think just off the rip, when
Yeah.
you see the way the guy moves day to day, they should have known that whatever he's not gonna be coming here to, I don't know, go alongside what they're
What they're
on about.
planning.
Yes, I mean, again, you have to know your people around you. You have to understand people around you, and if they do not understand that he was going to say something like this, then they're just stupider than I thought. That's all. But
one thing I should say, and I know this is called the World Government Summit, but I think we should be maybe a little bit concerned about actually becoming too much of a single world government. If I may say, that we want to avoid creating a civilizational risk by having, frankly, this may sound a little odd, too much cooperation between governments. If you look at, say, at history and the rise and fall of civilizations, that really all throughout history, civilizations have risen and fallen, but it hasn't meant the doom of humanity as a whole, because there've been all these separate civilizations that were separated by great distances, and so say like while Rome was falling, Islam was rising, and so you had like the sort of caliphate doing incredibly well while Rome was doing terribly. And that actually ended up being a source of preservation of knowledge and many scientific advancements. And so I think we want to be a little bit cautious about being too much of a single civilization, because if we are too much of a single civilization, then if the whole thing may collapse. I'm obviously not suggesting war or anything like that, but I think we want to be a little bit wary of actually cooperating too much. It sounds a little odd, but we want to have some amount of civilizational diversity such that if something does go wrong with some part of civilization, that the whole thing doesn't collapse, and humanity keeps moving forward.
well, there it is, sir. What are your thoughts?
Before I jump to my thoughts, I have to say Elon is starting to lose his hair like his father. It has a little huge indent in the side over there.
Mm.
His father had the same haircut. But yeah, back to the comment though. It's funny how it said. Yeah, I know you guys call yourself. This is called the What Government Summit, which is right to the point. Like, what are y'all doing, man? What the hell is What Government Summit?
Right.
And it's always, sometimes people think this guy is crazy, like, but it sometimes makes a lot of sense. This is one of those times where it makes a lot more sense than the entire room. Basically, going against the waves. Um, Civilization. It's argument about why do we even need this in the first place. You want everybody thinking in the same direction. What happens if everybody in the room is thinking the same direction?
Yeah.
Innovation slows down, number one. Extreme control, everybody. Then eventually, what happens in those kinds of environments is that they will start fighting and competing for the same resources. That is what happens when you put everybody in the same box or in the same thought process. Because one person's always want to be the head. Whereas when you have your decentralized or your own different mindsets, we can all still come to the same room and agree to disagree, than forcing everybody to agree. That is one thing that I'm thinking about. But then the thought about critical thinking, which is what schools are not teaching people, which is where you can just go to a classroom and just sit down and just download everything your professor says without asking questions. I'm sure it's one of those kids that asks a ton of questions. Maybe probably even dropped out of school. It's like, I can't deal with this anymore. I need to be able to ask questions and think and see what's going on here. And I think that's what's happening here, is questioning the process. Like, how does this all make sense at the end of the day? And I think that's good. That's what we need more of. That's just my thought on that.
Yeah. One world government. It's there is the idea of not putting all of your eggs in one basket.
Mm.
There's the idea of having different ideas, opposing ideas, having a resistance, a yin and a yang, if you will. So the idea of having the whole globe run under one government, which will mean operating under one set of rules, could very much be the death of humanity. Because if a group of people, which again, I don't think that it definitely will only become catastrophic, because it seems that there is already a small group who seems to be aligning themselves with these plans for global domination. It's almost crazy because it seems like it's stuff that you only see in a movie where there is an evil leader trying to conquer the world. But this is real life activity. A bunch of rich people trying to claim ownership to the entire globe, which is outright insane. And so, if we're now being driven by this single group of people, if they're driving us into the ditch, then we're all dead. We have to have opposing points. We have to have alternative paths of growth than under the vision of a select group of people who are clearly disconnected with the reality of just the average human experience. So I see Elon's point. We don't want to be well, no one ever accepted to having a world government
in the first place. So we didn't ask for it.
Exactly. So to be at this point where there is a group of people who think that this is reasonable, I can almost assure you that these are the same group of people who have made themselves immune to all the laws that are already in place to govern everyone else. And at this point, it just seems like it's about just taking, closing house, just taking up the whole thing, owning all the resources that there is. But again, I think that there will be a difficulty to this because I do not see countries like El Salvador participating in these things. I do not see Russia necessarily participating in this. Yeah, Brazil and most African nations.
They shouldn't
participating in this thing. So at the point where they think that they will be engaging or fully putting this type of stuff into play, it will be interesting to see how they will handle the backlash that comes with it, because that's one of the beautiful things about media these days. Everyone can expose what is happening. That is why we do what we're doing as well, to raise awareness of what Bitcoin is, the freedoms that it provides us, right? We may not be the biggest channel, but I think that we all owe it to ourselves to do our part to ensure that as a human race, right, we retain our freedoms which we're born onto this earth with, and not becoming slaves to a bunch of people who really put in no work but seem to have captured the whole world. So I think that's the part that I think we all need to be aware of. And understanding Bitcoin is one of those things that will allow us to evade, right, if you will, or avoid this sort of central planning. It is insane to me. It's still surreal when I watch these videos to think there's just a group of human beings who have decided that, yeah, well, we're going to be your leadership with or without your input. Because I'm not sure at what point that the general public across the globe gets to engage in this conversation about their leadership under a group of people that have no credibility. You've not met them before. They've not presented themselves and the vision to the world and had any sort of conversation with anyone about it. I can only recognize existing and voted for, even if in a situation where it's maybe a fraudulent elections, right? Governments under a flag, right? So if we vote for a president here in the US, it would be insane to me if all of a sudden, let's say Biden's like, well, we're going to spend this much money on highways, and Schwab and his crew comes in and is like, no, we're not going to do that. That is what these people are claiming they can be able to do, which is asinine.
Yeah.
Final thoughts.
I can give a good example before you jump to final thoughts.
Yeah.
Nigeria is a good example of that. When you have too much centralization, so for example in Nigeria, they moved the police department from the state and city level all the way to the federal level. What happens with that is that now the policing is done only at the federal level and assigned to certain government or certain governors, right? So the critical policing that needs to be done at the state and city level is gone. That in that environment doesn't work. Kind of like in the US as well. Each state is allowed to some way operate independently, whereas we still have the Constitution.
Yeah.
That is what makes America great. That's what makes America work. When you try to do that in the global world, which is kind of what we have right now, a big issue is that, like you said, if the global government say, okay, we need to spend money on ESG, but then in your own country you have other important things to take care of, like China, like African countries where say, hey, you've already developed your country. It's our time to industrialize and do our own thing. You cannot force us to not do that.
Yeah.
That will not work. People used to think at some point that this was all conspiracy theory. Oh, they are not after you. These are the they right here in your face. Making the plans is no longer in hidden doors. It's right there in your face, making the plans to fully take over. And if you've not noticed, the same group of people in the World Economic Forum are the one now in this Global World Summit or World Government Summit,
yeah.
right? And if you understand their agenda is ESG, their agenda is CBDCs. So when you have a world government, what currency do you think those countries are going to use to exchange with each other? Of course, it's going to be CBDCs. What do CBDCs then do to the citizens of the country? Forget it. Your life is done.
With a world government, there's no countries. That's what it
You're going to be
to me.
states within the governments, right?
It's
kinda
like
like-
you're just all under Schwab.
By the way, I was doing some reading on who the heck is this Charles Schwab guy. This guy got some serious coaching from Kissinger,
Yeah.
worked for the CIA, is part of the Schwab family. it's fully deeply connected. That is why it's allowed to just go around and do all the major stuff that it's doing right now.
Privileges.
Yep.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think about this in the comments below. Maybe we're way off the mark on this one, but it's definitely an interesting time and some interesting things unfolding right before our eyes. What happens next is an interesting one. All I know is Bitcoin still seems to be standing strong despite anything that these people are doing. That's where my bet is going to be. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for governments to work, we have to figure out how to make Bitcoin work for governments. We've done several videos on how governments can implement Bitcoin to remove this corrupt and external elites influence on government. Separate state and money, separate church and money. Bitcoin does that. We have some videos on the channel about that. Check them out.
Cool. Like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter, STAKKFin. We are also on Facebook, STAKKFin. On Instagram, who knows? The situation is shaky. We'll let you know. And of course, we are on Spotify, STAKK. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, praise and out.
Double O.